Considering the fact that those things have changed, women are not going to give up any of the rights that they've gained through suffrage or any of the social stances that they gained because of suffrage. Um, I can make a case that men should go 50-50 because things in society aren't going to change. I don't think that it's fair for women to ask for traditionalism and still benefit from modernism at the same time asking for all the benefits that help them. And it seems like everything everybody's been saying, the ideal man for an ideal woman, the man is going to be greater. He's just going to be the more superior being.
So,
Oh, go ahead. Who wanted to speak on
no,
this?
no,
Because
go.
it was going to veer to another question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to hit on this a little bit because I think Mark's this question is important. Um, I think sometimes when we take a look at the older generation or some of the things that have happened in the past, we tend to romanticize things and not really look at the reality of it, right? It's apples and oranges. To be honest, the older generation had a sense of community that doesn't really exist like that now. Now, individualism is so pushed that even if you're getting those things, there's still a sense of isolation, right? You don't have your neighbors that you can rely on. You don't have family members living a little bit closer to you. You don't have a whole lot of these kids kind of playing together, growing up together, because everybody's kind of doing it in silos. That satisfaction that you're getting from doing that and being able to brag about your kids, it's all done through social media, and we've all seen that those dopamine hits don't last the same way. They program the brain so differently. So we can talk about how women in the past found satisfaction from that and talk about how women now are not having children or aren't engaging in marriage or taking marriage seriously from the beginning, but we're not also talking about all of the other factors that play into that society looks so significantly different, that attaining that without shifting society back to that is way more challenging than it was in the past, right? And Trigger Mike, like we can go back. I'm not going to get into it. I just want to mention it, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs has been debunked on so many different levels because it is so problematic in the way that it's set up. Um, it insinuates that if you do not have your base needs, then you are not able to attain any sort of fulfillment or happiness. And that totally contradicts what you were saying earlier about some of these other communities that live more humble lifestyles and still find that happiness and fulfillment. So you can't, I wouldn't bring in Maslow's hierarchy of needs into that and still have that conversation about fulfillment.
I don't see how that applies because those people who live that more frugal lifestyle are actually making sure their needs are met.
Well, it's not typically just being frugal, right? Typically, it's they live that lifestyle out of necessity. It's not because it's their want or need or that's the lifestyle that they want. That's the circumstances that they are subject to.
Sometimes
Yeah.
their community, and like I think the people that I've found to be the happiest, I think in all of human history, I forget, and I can always find the stat or the research if I have to. It's because of, or looking at all different factors of what makes someone live the longest, from not smoking, from not whatever. The common factor was living around a close knit group of people and being around family. So I would say even if they don't have the material items or whatever, I think, and that's what I think this society has kind of strayed away from, which is why we have so many issues today, is that we are so focused on material items that we've forgotten the small things like community, like family, things like that.
Inez, could you repeat that last thing before you started talking about hierarchy? You said something about women in the position of society, like they're not being the change or it not changing.
Or, I think what I said was because of the lack of community, right?
Hmm.
Women are not finding fulfillment in the same things as previous generations, right? Because the just the way that it's set up, that to be able to show that off or take pride in it is just a little bit different because individualism is pushed.
Okay.
And in order to kind of have, it's increasingly difficult to find fulfillment in those things if society is not pushing back to valuing those things.
Okay, so I think at that point, I can make the case for 50-50 on for men. Considering the fact that those things have changed, women are not going to give up any of the rights that they've gained through suffrage or any of the social stances that they gained because of suffrage. Um, I can make a case that men should go 50-50 because things in society aren't going to change. I don't think that it's fair for women to ask for traditionalism and still benefit from modernism at the same time asking for all the benefits that help them. And it seems like everybody's been saying, the ideal man for an ideal woman, the man is going to be greater. He's just going to be the more superior being. However they want to look at it. Financially, they want that. She doesn't want to work nearly as much. Guess what? Who's going to have to make up for that? He can't not work either. She wants to find a leader. Guess what that needs? Experience. So he's got to be a little older. All these things that you guys are saying is kind of proving the point. And in an idealistic world, in an idealistic man, women are going to benefit from whatever relationship they get in. So it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. If it's an ideal man in an ideal situation, regardless of marriage or not, women are definitely going to be benefiting.
So I wanted to point that we keep talking about this. So let's be realistic. Because ideally, in my head, I have an ideal guy, but how often, just like I can say for the men, they may say ideally, those women who I would want a wife aren't available. I think for women, they think the same thing about men. So when we're talking about in reality, how often do you come across a person that you're like, oh, I could wife her or I could marry him? So in real life.
That's up to you as the person. You decide that with who you date. Like that's literally the solution that most men and women give, especially in these spaces. Pick better. So now we're going to stick with that. Pick better for both
Right.
men and women.
So let me ask you a question. So how often in a year's time do you come across somebody who's you feel is marriage material?
I don't know, because me personally, that's not my goal. We may not have the same goals. It depends on what we're looking for. So if you're asking me specifically how often, I've only come across maybe one, but at the time I was looking, but now that I'm not, probably none. So it's up to the individual, which is why I use an idealistic thing. What would you want? What do you think? What do you feel? What is the requirement that you would have for this person? Do they meet them? And if they meet them, let's assess what this would look like. Because that's the only thing we got to go off of. If we go off of actuality, I could say, hey, I'm not looking for a wife. So maybe that's why I can't find any. You know what I'm saying?
All right, so I'm going to read this super. Did anybody have anything to add? And I'm going to read the super chat.
One quick thing. So when you guys are talking about the bottom level of our survival or needs, I think that we confuse luxury with the base level of survival a lot, and those two get conflated. So them being in that other country doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have those needs met. It just they might not have every name brand or I just want to add that.